My name is Ashley Smith, aka DJ Such a Lady, and I have a special guest with me today, Miss Julie Oliver.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
yes, so we even got this. Listen, now for Julie. So not only is
Uh,
Julie one of the most awesome people I've met, but she has done some of the groundwork for us in Texas. And I know a lot of you guys appreciate the work she has done. And can you let them know exactly what you've done and who you are?
yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. First of all, can I again, for all of your listeners, can I congratulate you again on one, running for office, and two,
Yes.
getting that off? I think you might be the first DJ that's been official DJ in office.
Let's go.
Right? First.
You see the
Thank
records up there? These are real records.
Right? Vinyl. Man, you don't see that every day. So my name is Julie Oliver. I ran for Congress a couple of times here in Texas in one of those crazy shaped districts. I live in Austin, but my district went from Hayes County to the south of where I live, all the way up through Burleson, Texas, and a little bit into Tarrant County. But part of my district that I ran in for 4 years was Killeen. And so I think I met you at, I know it was an event. It may have been the one that Beto came to in 2020 in the parking lot, but at a, I think, is it a senior center or senior activity center?
You know what? It was there. I
Yeah.
forgot if we've known each other that long.
Yeah. So, or maybe that was 2022, I guess. That was 2022. But yeah, so did a little bit of that. When I didn't win my elections, I definitely wanted to stay in Texas and help in whatever way I could. And had an idea. It was a crazy idea, but what if we could get people out to vote around marijuana? Kind of kill two birds with the same stone. Do some good in cities and get people out to vote. And while we can't legalize at the city level, we can definitely create priorities within our cities. And so we collected signatures in Killeen and Harker Heights and Austin and San Marcos and Denton and a handful of other places, and got marijuana on the ballot. And in every one of those cities, it won overwhelmingly. So people voted yes to say, you know what, people shouldn't be jailed for low-level marijuana offenses. It's a goof. They shouldn't be ticketed and they shouldn't be jailed. It's a waste of our resources. It's a waste of police officer time. And who knew that was going to be such a hit? So did that until just recently. And now I'm doing two things, splitting my time kind of between Bell County and trying to support the folks like you running for office, and doing part-time work for a very progressive veterans organization. And while I'm not a veteran, I have such immense gratitude for the folks in my life that I've known who are, including you.
Yes,
And I feel I cannot even tell you, I tell them this all the time. I'm like, I thank you for letting me work with y'all. I feel very privileged, working among an esteemed group of people who have done something that most of us in our country have not done, which is put on the uniform.
Yeah, I think the number last time when I was in the Army, they said 1% of us will join the military. And that was kind of cool because I didn't know. I just wanted to do something different that my family did. But I loved my Army experience. I was in from 2008 to 2016. In my 8 years, I went to 9 different places. And I don't know who I would have been without that experience because I've never met so many different people. It was my first time going outside of, well, Canada, but outside the United States itself for Canada. And it was just a great experience and I met great people.
Yeah, so thank you for doing that. And that's one of the things when we were doing the marijuana decrim, I was like, if you really want to thank a veteran, legalize marijuana. Veterans have been asking for this for a very long time, to have this in their, what they can treat not only pain with, but PTSD with. And it's insulting that we require veterans to either get on psychotropic drugs or heavily addictive pharmaceutical drugs, and not allow veterans to have a natural remedy that can address a lot of ailments.
I agree. And one thing about my battle buddies, they're going to do it anyway. So we might
Well, everybody's doing it anyway. I mean, that's what,
Yeah.
your study shows, that literally almost everybody in America is doing it.
Yeah.
And so why not do it legally?
Correct.
Why not actually allow people to create legal businesses around this and
Sure.
create an industry that can not only be an industry that benefits its owners instead of drug cartels, but also one that we can tax
Right.
and, get some tax revenue. In the states that have done it and have tax revenues from it, it alleviates a lot of the other taxes the state or the people of the state have to pay.
Sure. But you know what I really like, even though you kind of brought the marijuana to the forefront of Texas, a lot of people still are completely against it. And
Yeah.
and I
And
don't
I
know.
don't know why. They're not educated. That's all I can say. And I was one of those people a few years ago. In fact, I
Oh,
believed the hype that people, primarily my mom told me. I believed it. And then I actually, when I started doing the research on it, I was like, wow, this is not at all what we, especially as young people, I'm not young anymore, but when I was young, but what young people are told about this, right?
yeah.
It's quite the opposite. It has an incredible, and because it's been kept at a Schedule 1 drug until recently, when Biden didn't quite deschedule it, but he rescheduled it, says from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. We couldn't even study it in our country because it was a Schedule 1 drug. So it hasn't, other countries have been able to study it. We've not been able to do our own internal research here in the United States because it's been a Schedule 1 drug. So I imagine now that it's been rescheduled to Schedule 3, we're going to have a lot more studies on it to see, well, what are the benefits? What is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Sure.
And hopefully find the part of the spectrum that is good and be able to allow people to use it for good.
And what I like about this is when we were doing, and I'm going to tie this back to Operation Vote, when we were doing the actual work of getting the signatures, you had to be a registered voter.
Yeah,
And a lot of people don't
right.
know, because people say, well, voting's not important, which I do feel like the vote has been lessened, especially with the purge coming. But people really do not feel that their vote counts anymore. Can you kind of attest to how you feel about that?
Well, I feel like every vote matters. We saw that the second time we went to Harker Heights. So we had an overwhelming majority, I think 61 or 62% of the residents of Harker Heights voted to decriminalize cannabis there.
Right.
City council thought they knew better. Actually, they didn't honor democracy and they repealed our ordinance to decriminalize it. So we went back, got signatures again, put it on the ballot again, and we won by one vote. Literally one vote was the tiebreaker, and we won again. And I met a woman who is a county commissioner in Brazos County, where College Station is. She won by four votes. So in her race, literally every vote mattered. But I wish people knew how important, how powerful that vote was. I think what has been intentional is trying to dampen enthusiasm for voting and making people feel powerless. And and nothing could be further from the truth. The vote is power. The vote is 100% power. And rich people know that. That's why they vote, because they get listened to, their tax burden goes down, they get protected, they get what they want. But if you make people feel powerless and that their vote doesn't matter, rich people and people with nefarious agendas have a way of wreaking havoc, making people feel powerless. So, but the vote does matter. Going back to all this, vote matters. It really does.
And you know who else doesn't vote?
Who?
Veterans. We do not vote. And it bothers me because I have friends who passed away in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I just feel like, if nothing else, let's honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, which in America is the vote. And the numbers are very scary, especially here in Killeen, where we have such a big military presence. Like at some point, we're only voting at 10%, and
in some elections, yeah.
So it's very
I want to say even in like 2022 during the general election, we're voting for the governor and lieutenant governor, all the state positions, and then Congress people and state house people. I think there were parts of Bell County that were voting at like 30 something percent. That means 1 in 3 people who were registered to vote actually went out and voted.
Right.
And there's a lot of, what I think batshit crazy legislation that gets passed because they rely on people not voting. And you get more extremism in elected to office. And then you get laws that do things like purge the voter rolls, which just happened. Or not just happened, it's been happening since the 2021 special election that passed SB1, went to Greg Abbott for signature. He signed it. And it made voting in Texas a lot harder. And one of the things it gave power to the Secretary of State to do is command counties to purge their voting rolls for a number of things, some legitimate, and they were doing it anyway. So if you died,
Right.
obviously dead people were purged. This happened before SB1. We didn't need another law to say dead people need to be purged from rolls because that was happening anyway.
Right.
It is you can't vote if you're a non-citizen. So that's always been the law. So if you're a non-citizen, you can't vote. And that means you could be here on a permanent residency, permanent green card. But non-citizens do not have the right to vote in our country. But what it did do is say people who didn't vote in, let's say, 2 general elections, 2 November elections in even years, it gave the state the authority to wipe those voters off the rolls. And let's say you live in Killeen, for example.
Okay.
2016, you've got Trump and you've got Hillary on the ballot. Maybe neither candidate seems super appealing, right? And then you've been gerrymandered because you live in Killeen and you've got one congressman who lives in Weatherford who doesn't even live in your district. And then the rest of your county, you're the only part of the county that's been pushed off with this guy. Everybody else is pushed off with the guy who has Williamson County.
Okay.
And then at the state level, your state House people, you've got one person who takes a little bit of Killeen and then take all of Lampasas, again, to dilute Killeen's vote in their voice. Everybody else is put with the guy who's over like Salado and Belton. So that's called gerrymandering. It's illegal under the Voting Rights Act. And if it's done to intentionally dilute the minority vote, it violates federal law. But it has been done. You have to sue, and it takes years to work through the court system. And it's, guess what? Killeen is, the way that they've gerrymandered Killeen is in active lawsuits right now at a congressional level and state house level.
Yes.
But if you didn't vote, let's say in that election, so you're like, who do I vote for? There are no Democrats on the tickets, just Republicans. And I'm not really jazzed about either one of the presidential candidates. And then 2020 rolls along and you're like, great, it's Trump and Biden now. Great. What choice? What awesome choice. And you're still gerrymandered. So you've got Republicans on the ticket, but maybe if you're a Democrat, no Democrats on the ticket. So I can understand why people might say, well, there's no choice on this piece of paper. There's no choice. I don't have a choice in who I'm voting for. Like, there's no choice for me. But if you didn't do that, if you didn't vote in those 2 elections, guess what? You just got your name hacked from the voter rolls. And you might be ecstatic that Kamala's top a ticket. You might be thrilled that Kamala's top a ticket. But guess what? The state just went in and chopped you off the voting rolls. That literally, they've taken 1.1 million voters off the voting rolls, half of whom didn't vote in those elections. That's part of it. And the other half is the county sent you correspondence and it got returned back to the county. Either the post office didn't quite do their job and get it delivered, and so it got returned, or somebody ignored it, thought it was a piece of junk mail and they tossed it in the trash. If you didn't answer one piece of correspondence from the county, they just took you off the voting roll. So if you were expecting, you could have voted in 2016 and 2020, but you got something mailed to your house and you didn't answer it. And now you find yourself on the chopping block and they've taken your name. You're going to go vote in maybe early voting in October or election day, November 5th. And they are like, no, there's no Ashley Smith. No, there is no Ashley Smith. You are not registered to vote here. Can you imagine how demoralizing that is for somebody who's like, I voted 2 years. I know I'm on the rolls. I just voted. I voted in May,
Yeah, and no one asked for this. No constituent said, you know what, take me off. They went out of their way with their ID, signed the paperwork, and said, I want to be a part of this system.
Right. That's right. They wanted to be part of it. And so you could have been a good voter, but if you didn't answer that piece of mail, not an email, not a phone call, not somebody coming to your door, not
Right.
certified mail, regular mail, they
Mm.
can remove you. There's another piece of the law, and this one is horrible. I didn't know that we even had this in Texas until I read the statement from the governor's office. If you don't answer what's called a notice of examination, meaning they want to examine to make sure that you are eligible to vote. That means somebody has reported you as not being a citizen. Doesn't necessarily mean the election office has. It means somebody could anonymously say, you know what, Ashley's not a citizen, and yet she's voting in elections. Ashley, now you have been put on notice that you need to prove that you're a citizen. So you're going to have to go to the election office and bring your birth certificate or a passport or your gold star driver's license in Texas. Or they could say, oh, Ashley's saying that she's, 28, but really she's 17. She's trying to vote and she's not 18 yet. So they could say whatever, like one of those disqualifying, like the things that make it so that you couldn't get registered to vote. So they'll send you a piece of mail. If you didn't answer that piece of mail, Ashley, you're off the voter rolls.
So we literally have people who are snitching, like voter snitches.
Voter snitches, yes.
That's a
And
wild.
they can do that if they want to. If they just don't want something, they want to wreak havoc in someone's life, they can do that. Yes, they 100% can do it. And the election office is obligated to follow up on it. They follow up through mail. And if you don't answer that piece of mail, you're out of luck.
That is an interesting concept. I hope people would not be that petty, but they are.
Some people are. That's what's so unfortunate. There really are some people that are that petty. So yeah, it's they made it a lot more difficult in 2021 to register to vote, to go vote. They made it more challenging. Like it used to be that Bell County could, in their budget, send out for people who had requested a ballot by mail before.
Right.
They could send it out again without the person having to affirmatively say, I need a ballot by mail. So for your over 60 or 65 and older population, for folks who have disabilities, for folks, especially in Bell County, who might be actively deployed somewhere that's not Bell County, but their vote and their registration is still here. Bell County could send out applications because every election cycle, you've got to re-register for your ballots by mail. So the counties now cannot do that. The state has made it illegal for counties. You can't tell me there's a valid reason for that. So it is challenging, and they've made things increasingly harder to vote. In 2020, when we were dealing with the pandemic, and this had nothing to do with the pandemic, it was really to actually be of service to our first responders. Harris County created 24-hour voting, and they set it up near, I think it was a hospital in Houston, so that folks who were working the overnight shift could go vote and then go back to work. So they could take their break, run over and vote, and go back. So it was truly to honor our first responders who work crazy hours on shifts, or they may be working a 7 to 7 shift. And guess when the polls open and close? 7 and 7. So they had 24-hour voting for our first responders. The state made that illegal. And I can tell you from my own experience and it being at the polls, greeting voters, either during our early voting or election day, seeing soldiers who were recently deployed to Fort Cavazos get turned away because they didn't know that you have to be registered 30 days in front of an election to vote in that election.
Yes.
And so that means this year you have to get registered by October 7th. So I would encourage everyone to check their voter registration status to make sure they weren't purged. You can go to votetexas.gov and check your voter registration status. But if you find that you're not registered and you'd like to become registered, you have to register by October 7th to vote in the November 5th election. And there are a lot of folks who get deployed here. They get a 2-week notice, like 2 weeks before the election. They get their papers and they got to go. There's nothing they can do. It's too late to request a mail-in ballot where they live. And it's too late to get registered to vote in Texas.
Oh, man.
And so what I would love to see is same-day voter registration for our enlisted men and women in the military and their families, because families have to go with them, right?
Yes.
When one person gets the order, everybody in the family gets the order. So there's no reason we can't have it. Almost every state in the union has same-day voter registration. No reason why Texas couldn't have it. And certainly the people who are defending our country, in my mind, are entitled to have same-day voter registration because they cannot control where they're deployed, when they're deployed.
I agree with that. I know in Michigan, I've been registered to vote as early as I could be, but we definitely look out for our veterans on that front. So that is disappointing. I never realized that with our soldiers. Maybe we need to get with Fort Cavazos and see what we could do to assist them in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And I feel bad for the soldiers who've shown up at polling locations thinking they can get registered because they came from a state where that was the case. They could get registered to vote at a polling location, and they arrive in Texas only to be turned away. And I can tell you, I've seen the expressions on the faces, and it's awful. It's awful.
You know, the only time I did not vote, I was in the military. I was in basic training in 2008 when Barack Obama was running for office, and they did not let us vote. And that was like the only time I had never voted.
Wow.
And that was illegal. And they knew it was illegal. And they said, well, do a complaint.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And where's that going to go? Exactly. But you're putting on a uniform, and at that time you were sent all around the world to active wars we were involved in, and that could mean the loss of life,
right?
Mean the loss of a part of your body. It can mean the loss of part of your, your soul. Truly, like for what folks have seen in battle.
Yeah.
But no, you don't get to vote.
Yeah, it was disappointing. That's why I think I dedicated this voter registration to military, and I made it nonpartisan. So I've done something that no one else has been able to do with Miss Julie, and that's to get you to work with Republicans. So
yeah.
To get a
I'm all about, the thing that we have, and I do think that there are Republicans out there who realize how precious a gift voting is. It is. It's absolutely a precious, beautiful gift, and we've not always had it. And if we understood the history of our country, even the people, the people who came over from England, the first settlers, they didn't have the right to vote. And I mean, I could go on a whole rant about the fact of the matter. This country has not prioritized voting for everybody.
Correct.
In its history, it has excluded almost everybody except for rich, wealthy, white male landowners, from voting. And truly, even the settlers in our American Revolution, we weren't fighting for freedom. They were free. They were not enslaved. The settlers weren't from England. They were fighting for independence from England. Truly, the only people in America who fought for freedom are slaves. Like, truly, the fighters for freedom. And, Hannah Nicole Jones says this: the only people in America who've ever fought for freedom are Black people, because they're the only ones who've known what it's like on this land to be a slave. So even the early settlers were fighting for independence. They weren't fighting for freedom. They were fighting for independence.
Yeah.
Which at that point gave a lot of them the right to vote. But again, it was, you had to be white, you had to be a man, you had to be a landowner. And so this country has not prioritized voting. We don't come from a rich history of voting, and that everybody has gotten a vote, and the vote is sacred, right? Yeah. No, it's been highly guarded, and it's, over time, it's been able to be expanded, and we're seeing a contraction again because there are a certain few who don't want everybody to vote. And I look at it as an extraordinary gift to be able to cast a vote. And that's why I'm going back to trying to bring it back full circle. I know that there's some Republicans that view it as an absolute gift. Absolutely. And that this fragile thing that we have, a democratic republic. Let's not forget, we do get to vote for the people who represent us. We are a republic, but we are a democratic republic. Yeah. So yes, it is democracy. We allow people to represent us through that democratic vote. It is precious, but it's not been ever revered by our country as being precious.
And that's what I like, because we get to change the narrative these days. We don't have to just go based on what was in the past. We have to know our past to know how to go forward. But we
Right.
cannot continue to do things the same way and expect to get different results. That's the definition of insanity. So for me, when I approach this, I'm in a nonpartisan place. And I say, a lot of people may know me because I am registered Democrat, but in the position I have to represent everyone, and I want everyone to know that I care about you. If you need me, reach out to me. So Bell County Democrats and Bell County Republicans have been super helpful in this event called Operation Vote. And
Yeah.
Stacey Wilson, our former Harker Heights councilwoman, she is amazing, and she has been instrumental in making sure this has been successful. In our first few days, we've already had 45 new voter deputy registrars, and we've had over 250 people registered to vote already in 4 days.
Oh my goodness, it's outstanding, and I love Stacy and grateful for the work that the two of you are doing. We're truly grateful. And I
Yes,
will say that I do think that there are some things that it doesn't need to be political at all. Um,
absolutely.
Getting people registered to vote does not need to be political whatsoever. It doesn't need to be partisan on any level.
Hmm.
It's a gift, and it's a gift for each person in America who is a citizen at least the age of 18 years old. Um, and independent, and then it gets into other different shades depending on whether you're formerly incarcerated or currently incarcerated. But if you haven't been incarcerated for a felony, and you haven't been deemed incompetent by a court,
Yep.
if as long as you're 18 and a citizen, you can get registered to vote and vote. But it shouldn't be partisan, and we certainly shouldn't try to keep people. I mean, we already have, you recited some of the statistics yourself. There's some elections where 10% of the electorate shows up. We
Yes.
don't have a problem with people voting too much.
No. People are disappointed, and
Nope.
I'll just be honest. They deserve to be disappointed. We have not given people the best America that they deserve. And we have to take responsibilities, especially as an elected person at this point. So
Yep.
I want people to know that, hey, if you need to reach out, you need to register to vote, you can be a felon and vote.
You
And
can
a
just
lot
be
of
off
people,
paper. You have to be
no
off paper.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have completed the terms of your sentencing, including probation. But
Mhm.
once you complete that and you're off paper, even if you're a convicted felon, you can have your voting rights restored in Texas. It's different from other states. Some states don't allow that, but once you are off paper, you are eligible in Texas to get re-registered to vote. The problem in Crystal Mason's case, and that was a very unfortunate case. Crystal Mason was still on paper. Her parole officer never told her you cannot get registered to vote until you're off paper. So when somebody said, hey, you want to get registered to vote? And she did. She didn't even cast a vote, but the Tarrant County District Attorney charged her with a felony because she got registered to vote. And like I said, she didn't even cast a ballot, not a real vote. Sorry, my husband's in the kitchen making noise. If you hear that
Oh yeah, I hear him a little
noise in the background,
bit.
just
But
doing
yeah,
a Zoom call that's recorded.
I can't believe they gave that lady a felony for registering to vote when it's all this
Yeah.
real crime that's going unsolved. Like, we have time for this.
Right.
But
Why? I mean, again, a horrible waste of people's money, and she didn't cast a vote. So it's so problematic. And again, she was not even educated by a parole officer that you have to be off paper to vote. So as long as you are off paper in Texas, you can have your voting rights restored.
outstanding. What if you're in jail? Can you vote?
You can if you have not been convicted of a felony. If you're in jail but you're awaiting your trial, you can vote. You can register to vote and you can vote. It is the conviction of a felony along with the terms of sentencing that make you
Wow.
ineligible. But if you're in jail and you have not been convicted, so you're awaiting trial, you can vote from jail. You can register to vote and you can vote in jail. And oh my gosh, somebody in Bell, no, she's not in Bell County. Never mind. She's in Tarrant County, is visiting jails to get people registered to vote who are awaiting trials.
You know what? We'll add that to Operation Vote. We need
Yeah.
who's the appropriate channel to go? through for that? Are you aware?
Yeah, I would ask, you know who I would ask? Louis. Louis would tell you. It's county jail, so you'll have
Okay.
to go to some county official. But yes, people in jail, even if they're in jail awaiting trial, they are eligible and they have every right to get registered to vote until they get convicted of a felony and are serving the terms of a sentence. They have every right to get registered to vote and to vote.
Wow, that's interesting. A lot of people don't know that. So if for a lot of people in jail, or if you got family member in jail, please reach out to us. We'll make sure that they get registered, especially in Bell County. And that's a really great point. So now that we know if you're registered to vote, the next stage is how do we get people registered to vote? So I could talk a little bit about it and then you can add. You can
Sure.
contact us. We'll have a link below and you could DM us on our streaming services as well. And we will actually come to you, or you could meet us at a site, Liberty Christian Church with Ken Wilkerson is they're registering people to vote on Sundays. We have a few churches. If you feel uncomfortable, you can reach out to the Bell County Democrats. You can also reach out to the Bell County Republicans. And if you feel more comfortable being on the partisan side, and they will make sure that you could get registered to vote as well.
And again, if you want to check to see if you're registered to vote at your current address, you can go to votetexas.gov, G-O-V. But if you aren't registered, so Texas has a little bit of we're only one of 2 states that do this. And we were the first, by the way. Tennessee was so inspired by how we keep people from getting registered to vote that they followed in our footsteps. You votetexas.gov. If you want to, you can actually request an application to get registered to vote. And I think they're supposed to mail you in, or you can print it. But a lot of people don't have printers. So if you don't have printer, you're kind of out of luck. So the other way is to go to your local elections office. They'll always have voter registration forms there. You can complete one there. Or to find somebody who is called a VDR. That is a volunteer deputy registrar. That means we've watched a 1-hour training on how to get people registered to vote, and we've taken an oath that we will faithfully execute the duties of our office as volunteer deputy registrar. If you get somebody registered to vote and you take that voter registration form from them and you are not a VDR, you have just committed a state jail felony. Somehow they think, and this, I mean, honestly, it has racist roots. I mean, we're going to be really have an honest history lesson right now. This was, they set this up as an impediment for Black people in Texas specifically to get registered to vote. Because a voter registration form is not the most complicated form there is, y'all. It's your name, your address, your birth date, and your signature.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people know that. You don't need me watching over you filling that out. But in Texas, you can fill out a form yourself and mail it in. Or again, if you want to take a trip to the elections office, you can fill out a form and turn it in. But if you don't have that ability to either mail it in or turn it in directly to the election office, you have to find somebody who is a VDR. And we have to help you. And then we take it from you and we have to get it to the elections office within 5 days of registering you. We'll give you a receipt, and that is proof that you're registered to vote. So take that, especially if it's around like October 7th, the beginning of October, when you're getting registered to vote, take that little receipt that a VDR gives you, because you might not quite be in the system yet. And that is your proof to the election judge that, nope, I got registered to vote. Here's my receipt from the VDR. And they will let you vote with that receipt. But yeah, we're only one of 2 states to do this. We think that most people are, qualified to fill out their name and their birth date and their address. Texas doesn't think that. And we don't have online voter registration. Also, if you were hoping, especially young people, you thought you could do everything online, not in Texas. It's a paper form that you have to fill out with your handwritten. I know my kids don't even know how to write anymore. They've never learned how to properly write.
That's crazy.
You should see. My son holds a pen. I kid you not. He holds it like this. How do you hold a pen like that, y'all? But this is how he holds it because he's been typing his whole life, right?
Yes.
He could type it like a madman, but he didn't know how to hold a pen to save his life. But in Texas, our voter registration forms are completely paper-based. And I will mention this, 1 in 11 voter registration forms gets tossed out because the person who's inputting it can't read the handwriting. So make sure you write as neatly as you possibly can so it doesn't get tossed out. The other part, there are a lot of typos, y'all. As you can imagine, if you're going through a stack of papers and it's just one after another, yeah, you're going to make some mistakes. So your birth date might get typed in wrong. Your last name might not be typed in correctly. Your address might not be right. That's what again, intentional, because we could go to purely online voter registration system, which every other state pretty much has, and get people registered to vote that way.
If you go online, people could be fake. That's why I think, isn't that the philosophy that it may be inaccurate why we don't do it online here?
Well, I mean, it could be fake if they're filling out their own form, right?
Oh yeah, right? That's right. That's right.
But you still have to be a real human to show up to vote with your real ID in Texas. So, yeah. And you still have to have an address, right? Like, what address?
Remember, you could be homeless. Oh yeah, we forgot about
that's true. I'm sorry. You can be homeless. That is right. You can be homeless. If you are actually unhoused, you live in a particular area of town, you can use the cross streets of where you live, like the closest to cross streets. I forgot. You're 100%.
I forgot about that. You said that. So you don't need an address. You don't have to have a home. You don't have. It's a lot of things you can do. But yes, you're absolutely right. But the ID is very important. And passports, what is it? You could do passports.
I have a whole list. Hang on. It's your driver's license issued by DPS, or an election identification certificate issued by DPS, or your personal identification card issued by DPS, or your personal handgun license, or your military ID card, your U.S. citizenship certificate containing the photograph. I think that's typically, I think that's a passport. Oh, and then it says U.S. passport, book, or card. Okay. But I do want to remind people, even if you really don't have one, let's say, you're going to go vote November 5th. And the weekend before, you lose your driver's license. So you do not have your form, and you don't have a passport, let's say. So you literally lose your driver's license the weekend before that Tuesday when you're going to elect. You can fill out what is called a reasonable impediment declaration at the poll and present a different form of ID, like a utility bill, a bank statement, a government check, even your voter registration card. You can show something else to them, and you can still vote, but you will have to fill out what is called a reasonable impediment declaration. Do not let them turn you away. That is law. You have the right, even if you don't have that type of. Let's say you don't have a driver's license. So let's say you never got one because like some people in my house, you let your mother drive for you everywhere. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's a very real thing. So, if you don't have one of those 7 forms of ID, fill out the reasonable impediment, bring a utility statement or something that has your name on it. Okay. Your name and your address, and you can use that instead.
What about Social Security card?
You can't use a Social Security card because it doesn't have your address.
Okay. So absolutely must have your address, must have your address.
Yeah. Your name and your address.
Okay. I feel like that's pretty much the most important parts of today's conversation. I wanted people to understand that you can register to vote. We have to October 7th. Bell County, we have a few events coming up. Saturday, we'll be doing Touchdown in downtown, and you'll be able to register to vote. We have about 30 VDRs, voter deputy registrars, who will be there. So that'll be a good turnout. Tomorrow, I'll be at the Men of Colleen doing my karaoke. So you could get registered to vote.
Yeah, sing it.
I'll be Mary J. Blige throughout that night in Notorious B.I.G. And is there anything else you think we should tell everybody?
Just if you're uncertain of what your voter registration status, again, go to votetexas.gov and you can check it there. And if you find that you're not showing up, get re-registered. And guess what? Even if you just want to play it safe, you could get re-registered. I promise you, you're not committing a crime if you re-register to vote and you're already on the voter rolls. They won't re-register you twice, but what they'll do is like, oh, this is Julie Oliver, her birthday is this, and this is her address. We've already got somebody that meets all of these that's registered with these qualifications. So if you're unsure, check. And if you really, really, really want to make sure, just go ahead and fill out another form. Nothing is going to be hurt by filling out another form.
Yes, better to have and not need to need and not have.
That's right. That's right.
And then one more thing, this is not about voting, but I would be remiss because my friends keep asking about this. We voted for decrim. What in the world is going on? Because I thought that we would have decrim by now. And
so
specifically.
So it only got passed in 2 cities, Killeen and Harker Heights. Harker Heights refuses to implement it. So, and there's not a lot we can do. You can't force them to honor it. Unfortunately, okay. I mean, the only way to do that is to vote the current electeds out and vote new people in who would honor it. And there are people who will run who are like, yeah, I voted for that too, and we should honor it. Killeen, it is being implemented. In fact, I think when the new police chief gave his report, I think it was maybe March of this year or April, for the first full year that it was in effect, 700 arrests were avoided. And citations were avoided. So people who could have been issued a ticket or been arrested, well, I think they said in Killeen, they weren't even giving tickets. They were only arresting. So 700 arrests were avoided for decriminalizing. Now, again, it's misdemeanor amounts, Class A, Class B misdemeanors. But they didn't take 700 people to jail under the new law, which is pretty cool.
So if you think you're El Chapo out here, this does not apply to you, sir or ma'am. We are not advocating.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
We're not advocating for industrial changes, nor will we be supporting that. Don't say, well, Ashley said that. No, I did not. No, but we did not say that either. We are not telling you to be El Chapo. We are just saying if you do recreational amounts, you don't have to go to jail, and you're not.
If you're in Killeen, though, but if you're in Toledo, Belton, I can't vouch for any other places.
We cannot help you there. We're talking about only.
And you know what? There's a good reminder. Somebody will file legislation to legalize it next year, or at least decriminalize it. I think it's Representative Moody from El Paso typically files legislation. Be sure to call your legislators and let them know that you would like to see it legalized. They have to take it down. How many people are calling them? The majority of people who are calling them are probably the people who are upset by decriminalization. They never heard from the people who are in favor of it, except for probably David Bass. David Bass is obviously very consistent in legalization, but join David Bass in calling the state ledge and telling your elected officials, we want this legal. We shouldn't be in jail for this, and we should be able to have a business from this. And that's really, I believe in my heart of hearts, people should be able to start up their own businesses around cannabis. And we should legalize it so that people can.
Yeah, I'm all for capitalism.
That's my personal take on it. But y'all don't have to have the same belief as me, but that's the way I look at it.
Okay, so that's amazing. I'm so glad you're helping with Operation Vote. Our mission was to get 1,000 people registered to vote in Bell County. We did not know the purge was going to happen. It just happened to align with that. And so if you know anybody who may need to register to vote, please let us know. We will send someone to your home. We are very serious about getting Bell County registered to vote. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to tell our people?
That's it. I think we're pretty comprehensive, but thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to stop recording and see what happens.